This is KYJJ 94.1 FM Woodman, Oregon, and K2A5 FM HD2 104.9 FM Kennewick, Washington. La Gran X 94.1 y 104.9 FM Latimix. Una estación más de Alcon Media LLC.
Este es el vuelo deportivo de Alcon Media con el Chivo. Comenzamos. Esto es lo más relevante del apasionante mundo de los deportes. Comenzamos con el vuelo deportivo del Alcon.
La Gran X 94.1 and 104.9 FM Latino Mix.
Hello, this is Ann Jordan here with Connecting Community, and I am blessed to have Dr. Nayeli here this morning. Welcome, Dr. Nayeli.
Good morning, Ann. Thank you for having me here this beautiful morning.
I am so excited to have her here. She is in an amazing amount of different organizations, not only with her employment, but out in the community doing all sorts of things. So she was filling me in, and there's even more than I even knew about when she showed up this morning. So it's fabulous to hear about all the things that you're doing.
Thank you, Ann. It's a really great opportunity to be living here in Tri-Cities. We are blessed to be connected with various nonprofit organizations and private funding sources that have such a huge heart. And, when there's a need, the community pulls together. I've seen posts in regards to when small businesses are struggling, when kids are struggling in schools, the community is graceful and reaches out to those who reach out, and we stand together as one. Tri-Cities is a very unique place here in Washington State, and we evidently have seen that in the growth.
That is amazing. Being born in the Tri-Cities, I like to think that we are connected and that we are all different, but there's so much we have in common when we sit down and talk with each other, and the heart of Tri-Cities can be very big.
Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about your personal story.
Well, Ann, I grew up here in Tri-Cities. My family migrated from Mexico when I was 3 years old. And then my educational journey began here in Tri-Cities and Pasco. My biological parents were migrant farm workers. So we traveled from one state to another. Eventually we settled. My dad put a lot of emphasis into education, acknowledging that the challenges and the barriers that were placed upon us were causing some type of negative impact in our education and the stability here in regards to looking for an apartment, because every time we would move, we would need to look for a different place that always inquired either a trailer, a basement, a room. The conditions were very unhealthy. I also grew, my parents had me at a very, very young age when they were teens. And so that brought some other challenges later down the road. I eventually dropped out of school in thus far among a lot of challenges that I was living in the home dynamics in my family. Eventually, I returned back to school. I graduated from New Horizons High School and then enrolled at CBC. During that time, my legal status was very complex. And unfortunately, I was not able to apply for scholarships. For financial aid. We didn't have financial aid for undocumented students. And so because of the work that I did, the volunteer work in the community, somebody at CBC reached out and they said, hey, you might want to consider becoming an ambassador, which opened a whole bunch of other doors. Going into education and social work has enabled me to connect with various nonprofit organizations and private sectors in our community that now enable me to support the families that I work with at the Pasco School District in the Migrant Education Program. 3 years ago, I ended up getting my doctorate in education. Thank you. To me, that path was very unique because I grew up in a family where my parents have an education of a second grade. I was the first one to graduate, so I opened up that path essentially because I didn't know anybody else besides a friend. But
do you think back to when you were a little girl and who you are today, and just you're so proud of that little girl?
absolutely. One of the things that has guided my path has been my path with God, my relationship with God. I truly believe that I'm here by the grace of God. And I do. I look at that girl that I remember praying sometimes when my dad would hit my mom, sometimes right after we came back from church. And I'm like, is this what, like, I would pray God and I have the life that I prayed for. His promises, like, I'm living this life now,
It's amazing.
providing a better life. So yeah, I would hug that little girl and I would tell her, it's going to be okay. I promise it's going to be okay. I am okay.
And now you're out in the community showing all of our little girls what you can do.
Yes.
How you can grow and be.
Yes, little girls, but I would say I don't know how I would put this, but I also have a 15-year-old, and I don't know if like that would be my biggest accomplishment, but that has always been a goal of mine, that she was to be raised as a very strong, courageous, smart, intelligent girl, just as I desire that with the youth that I work with.
So, well, thank you for sharing that story with us. That was very deep for starting out this morning, but I think it's very powerful. And I think when we speak what we've lived and the journey we've been on, and that life wasn't always easy, and there was challenges and struggles, and you persevered. And not that we want anyone to have to persevere, but for those who are going through struggles, to know there is a light and there is hope, and to try to figure out how to get there. So you kind of spreading the word just about you as a success story is helpful. So thank you for sharing your story with us.
Thank you, Anne. I truly believe that there's a lot of changes, a lot of things that I didn't have control over when I was growing up. But I got to a point in my life where I understood that there is a lot of control that I do have in my life. And one of those was my education and what I do with my time. And a lot of that is collaborating and volunteering my time, where we invest our time. And I choose to invest some of my time into our community.
That is amazing. So we're going to identify the station real quick, and we'll be right back. This is Ann Jordan. We are at 94.1, 104.9 La Grande Equis, and we are back here with Dr. Nayeli, and she just explained kind of how she got to the point where she became Dr. Nayeli, and her growing up story, so her background and where she came from, and it is an amazing journey. So we're blessed to have heard that this morning. And can you share a little bit more about your professional background with us and maybe what you're doing today?
Absolutely. So right now I'm currently employed with the Pasco School District as a migrant graduation specialist. And part of my role is to coordinate services for youth and families who move from either city to city or have had a recent move in the last 3 years in regards to agriculture, dairy, anything in poultry. So I've been doing that for the last 9 years at the Pasco School District. I also do some volunteer work outside our community. For example, LULAC, the Hispanic Academic Achievers Program. We do some volunteer work for the Ben Franklin Transit, for the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and other scholarship organizations. Because my education was funded through scholarships, I prioritize that as one of my values, to give back within the scholarship community.
I think that is very important. Thank you for sharing that with us. So we're going to break for some commercials really quick, and we'll be right back with Dr. Nayeli.
A todas las selecciones calificadas, esto va a ser épico. Y solamente lo podrás escuchar a través de Alcon Media, La Ranchera, Radio Lobo y La Gran X. Se van a vivir aquí en Alcon Media.
Odaca presenta a la cantante más querida, Alicia Villarreal. Bendita Locura Tour 2026.
Pero ¿quién te entiende ni tú te comprendes?
Alicia Villarreal vive un concierto inolvidable, lleno de los grandes éxitos de Alicia Villarreal. Viernes 10 de abril, Toyota Center en Kennewick. Boletos ya a la venta en Ticketmaster.
Nos dieron una tasación más alta de la vivienda después de guardar nuestras fotos familiares.
¿Te ha ocurrido esto por tu raza u origen nacional? Comunícate con HUD en hud.gov/fairhousing. Un mensaje de HUD y la Alianza Nacional de Vivienda.
Latino Mix.
Hello, this is Ann Jordan, and I am back with Dr. Nayeli, and we are learning about her journey in life, and she just told us kind of her story of where she came from and how she became a doctor and filled us in on some of her professional background. And so now we're going to have her tell us more about the organizations that she's a part of and the different work that she is doing with those organizations. I know you kind of gave us a little brief parts of that, but let's dive in a little bit more.
Absolutely. So one of the organizations that I'm currently part of is LULAC, which is the League of the United Latin American Citizens. And it is the oldest and largest civil rights organization in the United States. LULAC was founded in 1929 to defend rights and improve the lives of Latino Americans. Our headquarters are in Washington, D.C., and some of the focuses that we have is currently on education, employment, civil rights, health, and most importantly, in immigration reform. One of LULAC's mission is to advance the economic condition, the educational attainment, the political influence, the housing, the health, and the civil rights of the Hispanic population in the U.S. and in Puerto Rico. A lot of, like I mentioned earlier, the organizations that I currently am involved in, and I think we can connect with our audience is that we invest our time into organizations that have made an impact or that we have a connection. And LULAC has a very close place to my heart because I identify with a lot of the focus points that they have, for example, education and education attainment. Had it not been for people who advocated and who have fought, I would have not been able to support my education. And, up until getting the doctorate, a doctorate is very, very expensive. It can vary from $100,000 to $200,000, $300,000, depending on the number of years that it takes to pass the dissertation and several courses. And so we do a lot of fundraising, and we also do a lot of support in the community. For example, this coming up month, we have a food drive held at Amistad Elementary here in Kennewick, where we're going to be working with Second Harvest to provide meals for at least 300 families. I also volunteer for the Hispanic Academic Achievers program, which stands for HAP. A lot of Latin American students here in Tri-Cities, Connell, Othello, have access to this program that if they identify as Hispanic, then when they're seniors, they're eligible to apply for scholarship. And so our scholarship closed in February, but that's also another organization where we focused on education, attainment and access to higher education. And we do fundraising, and then we present the awards at the Three Rivers Convention Center. This year is going to be the last Friday in April, and that's open to all seniors. The other organization that I participate is the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Currently, I'm one of 3 of the active members who our role is to ensure that a wish is granted. A lot of the times, family requires for somebody to speak Spanish, and in our community, there is a lack of Spanish speaker volunteers. There's also if you are listening to me and you speak Russian or you speak any other language besides English, I would highly encourage you to reach out to the Make-A-Wish Foundation because it is a huge need. We do have a lot of families who unfortunately are experiencing very hard times. We have babies, as some babies are born with cancer, with leukemia, with rare diseases that I've never heard in my life. But what we do know is that these families struggle, and when it comes to diseases, when it comes to cancer, no one is exempt from that. Like no Hispanic, no Chinese, no Mandarin, no Russian, it doesn't matter. So it's very important that we have those ethnicities and those languages represented. And unfortunately, we don't. We need volunteers. We need people who can connect with those families because, yes, we can find a translator, but it's really hard as it is, the situation that the families are going through. And then on top of that, placing a translator, there's so much that is lost, so much sentiment and emotion that is lost in the midst of the translation. So as a Spanish speaker, my role is to connect with families who are experiencing challenging times that their kids are experiencing or after, during their recovery, and we ensure that a wish is granted for these families. And it's all Southeastern Washington that I'm in charge here.
Thank you for sharing that. And this is the second time I think we've had a conversation where your experience and viewpoint has opened up something that although I was aware, I didn't see it from that view. And that makes a lot of sense, realizing that although there is giving, it's hard to receive when there's language barriers and when there's even perhaps culture barriers where maybe emotion is shown differently or things are expressed differently. And that might not be translated just by hearing the words or knowing the words that were spoken. Because feelings don't always come across directly in words. And so having a better understanding makes a lot of sense. And now I'm sitting here thinking, who do I know that speaks different languages? And who do I know that speaks Russian or Ukraine or whatever version of different language? And now I want to reach out to Make-A-Wish. And I'm involved with Make-A-Wish. My business is one of the supporters involved in one of the big fundraisers they have. It's always been dear to my heart. But this is a viewpoint of it. And I'm going to share a little bit. Although Dr. Nayeli and I had worked around each other, I hadn't met her. I am part of Sue's Turkey Drive, as you know, and Nayeli and her different organizations that she had been involved in had been recipients. And Sue loves being involved with the recipients, so I hadn't met Dr. Nayeli. And she came and sat down at one of our meetings and explained some of the challenges with some of our community members who have never cooked a turkey or maybe don't even have ovens. And that opened our eyes. And I have constantly been talking in the community since that meeting about how do we help make sure everyone knows how to cook turkeys, and how do we make it feel united, and how do we perhaps find a way to get ovens or cooking utensils. We haven't solved that problem, but I know she sparked that interest because of the different way and different life experience you have. And so I think these conversations are important to have to get in the community different viewpoints and different ways of seeing things.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, and the way I try to, look at it is that sometimes if we have not been exposed to that, we have no idea, right? That sparked in me the conversation, that I've had with various sponsors and collaborators that help me support the families that I serve at Stevens Middle School. That sometimes, we wonder, and we're like, there's resources, there's organizations, but if they're, there was a gentleman that was in a nonprofit, and I asked him about his means of communication. Like, he wasn't getting the hits that he wanted, and they had all these resources available, and he was saying that he was putting it on Facebook and on Instagram, but if we look at the community that was intended to be served, it wasn't being targeted because of their means of resources to get to that resource. And so we have a lot of families that rely on free Wi-Fi, and a lot of places now, a lot of businesses have a passcode, have restrictions to certain websites. And so that may include Facebook and Instagram. And so if it's not in the language, if it's not in the means of communication, if it's not within their time of reach, a lot of the times those resources go to waste because they're not being purposefully communicated that to the community. And that's something that I've had to reflect throughout the years as I've done nonprofit, is that the intention is there, but unfortunately sometimes we dismiss those little details that make such a huge difference when it comes to truly impacting who we are intending to impact positively.
It reminds me of being taught communication isn't that I said something to you. It's that you heard it, you received it, and you understood the intent of what I meant to say.
Yes.
It's not just a one way, but it's a saying, receiving, and then acknowledging back. And so that could be the same with giving, that you can have something to give. And I've actually heard sometimes the giving can be more of a burden than a blessing, which is hard because when people sometimes are in a struggling spot, they're supposed to be appreciative. But if it's not actually helping them, an example might be somebody who can't eat a certain food and they're given that food. Well, they're supposed to be grateful for that food, but they can't eat it. And so now they have to do something with it. And then they feel guilty for either throwing something away or giving it away instead of it being the blessing it was meant to be. So figuring out ways that both way, and that it can even get to where it needs to go. Because I think that what you said was very profound, that we can scream from the rooftops, but if everybody's at work with earphones on, nobody knows we said anything. So
Absolutely.
Making sure that we're communicating during times people are available in ways that they can receive that message, I think is, again, something that can easily be overlooked because we kind of live in our own little worlds and we think we're doing something, but we're not stepping out of that comfort zone and actually making sure those who need to receive are able to hear about it and receive it.
Yeah.
So that's very profound, and I thank you for sharing that with us. We're going to see if I can identify the station real quick, and we'll be right back. Okay, I am back here with Dr. Nayeli. So this is Ann Jordan with Connecting Community. I have been riveted by listening to Dr. Nayeli tell us her stories and her viewpoint, and I love hearing her version and hearing it from where she stands. It's very eye-opening, and I think that it's good for all of us to make sure that we are not seeing things just from our viewpoint, but we're putting ourselves in other people in our community's viewpoint, because although we can have really good intentions, if it's not actually helping, then it sometimes can actually be a waste, and that we don't want good intentions to go to a waste. And I have learned that the Tri-Cities is super giving. We have great big hearts, and almost everybody wants to help and do something good, but so many people don't know. And so that is where standing up, and it can be hard. I know I was kind of always taught that you don't brag about what you do. You keep quiet about it. It's hard being on a radio station. It's hard I share a lot on social media about what I'm doing, but it feels braggy, and that's not the point of it. The point is leading, because if people see me doing things, then they know they can. And I wonder sometimes if, Dr. Nayeli, if you have that where you're out there leading and doing and showing, and sometimes you feel like you know that they're watching you, and you have to show up and do the things and make sure people know that they can too. And you have to remember, I'm out here being loud about what I'm doing to make sure everybody knows they can too. It's not about us necessarily. It's about the message of it can be possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's always going to be that one person, that one group, regardless of whether we live in a community that's giving and that's graceful and that's supports each other in hard times, there's always going to be that one person, that one group who may feel attacked or may feel like somebody else is bragging or they're showing off or they want recognition. I tried to look at it from a point where it's like, hopefully they want to help too. They just don't know how to, or they didn't take that initiative. I tried to look at it from a standpoint where it's like, it sounds to me like you're having a rough time right now. You're more than welcome to join. To me, I take a challenge as an invitation to collaborate with those people. Obviously, I can't do that when I don't know the people. But there's always going to be that one group. And as long as you know in your heart, as long as those who are around you are supportive of what you're doing, then as long as then you shall have peace, and you should continue working and doing the things that is your pursuit of happiness. And if your pursuit of happiness, like for example of mine, like I know that I received some criticism in the last couple of years. I've received several awards in regards to the work that I do in the community and my involvement in the community. I've been tagged and I've seen some Facebook posts, and if you were to go into my Facebook and my Instagram, I hardly ever post anything, and yet things seem to find their way to me. Comments seem to find their way to me. But at the end of the day, I just, as long as I'm peaceful with what I'm doing and what I'm giving back to the community, like I said, like there's no such thing as perfect, and there's no such thing as a one shoe fits all. There, in Spanish, we have a saying where like, I'm not made out of gold so that everybody loves me. And we all know that not everybody loves gold. Not everybody loves silver. Not everybody, I don't think there's a single item that we can identify that we all like it the same. We all see it the same way. And so volunteering and being part of nonprofit comes with humbleness and humility, courage that we didn't know we had, and humility that we didn't know we had to put ourselves in situations. And so knowing that we have that peace when we're giving back.
Thank you. Let's hear, I know you told us your story. Can you tell us stories of who you've impacted? Not any names, of course, but
yes, absolutely.
Just a story.
Yes. So a few years ago, I was working at doing the role that I do at the Pasco School District at that time. Like I said, it's been 9 years ago. So I had a senior. So my senior is now 26, 27. But we're currently doing some work together now. She was evicted from where she was living. She was a teenage mom. very challenging times. She needed community hours because that's what she needed when she was going through her legal processes. And I invited her to come do some work at a couple of nonprofits that I help. And she realized that giving back was an act of service that she needed for healing. She now volunteers alongside with me in a couple of organizations. She has her own business, and she is now giving back to one of the nonprofits, her business. And so for me to see that and to flourish that is like is a blessing that I was indicted to plant a seed in her life, and that we are creating that generational wealth, that we are creating that community wealth. It's good that, I have a degree. It's good that I have all these pot of collaborators and sponsors. But if I gatekeep this information, if I gatekeep these relationships, our community is not going to grow. Earlier, you mentioned something in regards to we're interconnected. We're only interconnected if we allow that interconnection to happen. We have partnered up with Sue's Turkey Drive, and I know that I've seen you out in a community with different events and people that I work with, and now here at the radio. And so we have that power to interconnect, or we gatekeep, and whether we do it for the benefit of our community or to empower our community, but we can also do some type of damage, because we got to understand that time is running. Like, there's no exception to time, and that is the one thing that we do all share in common. No matter where in the world, no matter what, we all have 7 days, we all have 365 days a year, and yet we decide to do, how do we invest that time, and how do we give that back to our children, to our grandkids, to the people that are come after us, the people that are going to educate our kids, to the people that are going to provide jobs to our kids, our grandkids. We have the power to change that today.
That is so true. And I think we forget that. I think we forget the power that we have in how we live our lives, and how we give voice to others, and how we do connect and how we don't connect. And I think that is a good point to have, to make sure that we are watching and knowing. I remember, it sounds kind of silly in comparison to what you said, but when my daughter was really little, I realized she took in everything I said. And everything I said was going through her and creating her. And I don't know that everyone always stops and thinks about how impressionable our children are, that everything around them is part of who they become. And that is true for everyone. It's not just little kids, but our community. And when we drive to work, if we wave at somebody with one finger, or if we wave with somebody with the whole hand and smile at them, that can have a chain ripple effect. So it is in those moments when we can share. And a lot of times we are taught not to. We are taught to resource protect. That if I have an open hand, then somebody will take what I have. And so a lot of times it can be hard, because the way we've been raised or programmed, that we have to protect versus give. And I have learned that if you have an open hand, you can give and people can take, but you also can receive. And if you have a closed fist, you can't receive. You might protect what's yours, but you won't receive anymore. And so that's that give and take part of life is, if you're not willing to give, you will receive a lot less. And oftentimes they see the teacher is really the student. It's the same with the giving. The more you give, the more you receive back. And giving to receive shouldn't be the intent, but it wonderfully can be a great outcome when you're giving from your heart and not with the intent to receive back. And I think that we forget that. Yes,
absolutely. And undeniably, for like I tell my kids at school, for every action, there's a reaction. So when it comes to giving, whatever the purpose is for giving, whatever the outcome that you're seeking when it regards, to giving, whether it's because you need a write-off as a tax, like you are expecting a reaction, a positive reaction. But when you are truly doing it from the heart, and this is the purpose that you are intending to, there's no monetary intention or reward in regards to that. And I see that a lot of the times with the sponsors that I get during the Christmas and the winter time, when it comes to like the sponsors have the opportunity to go into the homes that kids that are, they need it. The concern is like, I really want to help someone, but I want to help someone who really needs it. And I'm like, come on in, and they get to see that. And so a lot of the times that impact, that it's like, hey, they reach out and they say, hey, Dr. Nayeli, I would like to help. I don't know what it was, but this did a lot more than I thought it would. And a lot of the times that's what it is. You have a child and you didn't know that love existed, or that you could be you had the ability to love somebody in that capacity until you are there, like until you're exposed. You didn't know how hard something was until you're in it. You had an idea, but you didn't have the extent to what the complexities would be. And it's the same thing when we're giving. You have no idea what that will do in you until you are in that position where you're giving back, whether it's your time, whether it's a skill, whether it's knowledge. We have all knowledge of funds, and when we give that to somebody, whether it's 2-3 minutes at work, 2-3 minutes waiting for the bus, whether it's a minute or two you're waiting at the restaurant, and a simple giving that smile, giving that good morning. When you say good morning, it changes your perspective. It changes that not feeling inside your heart.
Thank you. We are learning so much with Dr. Nayeli this morning. We're going to take a quick break. I hate to cut off for commercials, but just give us a minute so we can do that.
Que disfrutan la emoción y pasión del fútbol. Ya viene el Mundial 2026. A partir del día 11 de junio, y Alcon Media te trae la emoción, jugadas y estadísticas y la pasión de México, Estados Unidos y Canadá. El Mundial FIFA 2026, solo aquí en las estaciones de Alcon Media. Prepárate para vivir lo emocionante de cada gol, cada jugada, cada estadística, todo a través de las estaciones de Alcon Media. Mundial FIFA 2026 en Alcon Media.
Restaurante Santa Fe, ahora con nueva administración y nuevo atento personal, te está esperando. Ven a probar la rica diferencia en sus platillos, como carne asada, fajitas a tu gusto, pechuga zarandeada, pollo asado o un molcajete sabrosito, camarones a tu gusto, mojo de ajo para plancha. Además, no puede faltar los burritos, enchiladas, tostadas, quesadillas y sus ricos tacos. Contamos con las bebidas exquisitas con los mejores tequilas. Ven y prueba las palomas, piña colada, micheladas y más. Contamos con servicio de ventanilla drive-thru. Estamos abiertos de 10 de la mañana a 9 de la noche. Ordene para llevar al 509-873-0023. Ubicados en el 1014 South Washington Street en Kennewick. Atenta invitación. Pase a visitarnos a Restaurante Santa Fe de Kennewick.
Apodaca presenta a la cantante más querida, Alicia Villarreal. Bendita Locura Tour 2026.
Pero ¿quién te entiende ni tú te comprendes?
Alicia Villarreal. Y de un concierto inolvidable, lleno de los grandes éxitos de Alicia Villarreal. Viernes 10 de abril, Toyota Center en Kennewick. Boletos ya a la venta en Ticketmaster.
¿Sabías que los olmecas construyeron ciudades como San Lorenzo y La Venta, con plazas, templos y plataformas elevadas? Estos centros no solo servían como viviendas, sino como lugares de ceremonias religiosas y reuniones políticas. Su urbanismo demuestra que ya existía una planificación social compleja hace más de 3.000 años. Aprende más sobre tu historia en Alcon Media.
Big River Sign es tu taller de rótulos de confianza. Nos especializamos en letreros, banners, gráficos para vehículos, calcomanías y mucho más. Ya sea para tu negocio o para proyectos personales, Big River Sign es el nombre en el que puedes confiar. Visítanos en el 1794 Fowles Street en Richland o llama a Freddy al 509-525-4761. Big River Signs.
Marcamos nuestra música, marcamos la pauta con nuestros locutores y ustedes nos marcan como los número 1, la Gran X, 94.1 y 104.9, Latino Mix.
Hello, this is Ann Jordan with Connecting Community, and Dr. Nayeli has joined me today. We have had a riveting conversation, learning about how we need to give, not just with give intent, but making sure that our give is received in a way that is helpful. We have had some great talks about making sure that we are leading and that we know that in everything we do, we are leading and people are watching, and to make sure that we're not gatekeeping resources, and to try to make sure we're seeing things not just from our viewpoint. Dr. Nayeli, thank you for being with us here today.
Thank you, Anne. It's been such a great way to start my day today.
And I hope all of our listeners have enjoyed this so much. Can you kind of go over the organizations that you're involved with, and especially the way that the community can help support you?
Absolutely. So one of the organizations I currently volunteer for is for LULAC. We have a chapter here, and it's located in Pasco on 20th. But if you're interested, we do a lot of community work. Earlier I mentioned we have a food drive in collaboration with the Second Harvest. It will be happening at Amistad Elementary on April 21st from 1 to 3. And we are looking for volunteers who are able to support in the food distribution. Another organization that I volunteer for is for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. If you speak a language other than English, and, for all means, if you speak English too, and you want to participate in ensuring that kids have a wish granted as a way to make a special moment for them and their families, I highly encourage you to reach out to the Make-A-Wish chapter here in Washington State in Alaska. We are desperate for speakers who speak other languages than English, because again, diseases, cancer does not have an exception when it comes to languages. However, it is a huge challenge, and it can be a huge barrier when it comes to granting a family's wish. And I currently work for the Pasco School District. I was telling you earlier in regards to some of the challenges that we encounter while working for an underserved community. A lot of the times is ensuring that students have the proper gear to participate in extracurricular activities such as cleats, soccer shoes. Right now, we're in the middle of the spring season. We have a lot of students who are running with Vans, who are running with Crocs, who are running with Converse. When I was their age, I ran with some of those shoes, and I had one pair of shoes to do all of my activities. And I understand that challenge, and it makes it a lot more challenging when it comes to competitions and to providing an equitable experience at school. And that can bring a lot of social and emotional challenges when it comes to the advancement in academics and their social and emotional well-being as they're developing into young adults and what they can provide for our community. And so right now we are struggling to find cleats, to find running shoes for track or any type of gear for the students to participate. During the summer, we struggle a lot with resources to ensure that students have the most basic needs, such as like pads. I know that Sparkle Initiative, and we have maybe another organization in the community that have a diaper bank, but unfortunately those resources are not available. Like, for example, for pads, pads is something, a hygiene basic supply that sometimes we out-challenge. It is a need in the female community, and we don't think about that, such as shaving cream for boys, deodorant. There's a plethora of students that struggle with hygiene because they don't have the proper supplies. It's not that they don't want to, they just don't have the supplies. And creating that organization and bringing in the supports from other nonprofits or private sectors who want to participate with that.
You're leaving us with so much to think about, and as a community to think, how are we going to step up and help support you? How are we going to help our future generations? As a Pasco girl myself, I know that we used to say that our sports fell off after everybody got their driver's license because everybody had to go to work. We weren't able to play sports. And as a mom, I can see the value of work, but I also see the value of sports and that community. And a lot of, there's a book I read years and years ago that a lot of the successful people, it was men in business, were the quarterbacks and the star players because they played in these teams and they learned how to do these things. And it is part of social development that our youth needs. To be able to play sports, but play it in a safe way and play it in a way that they are protected and taken care of and able to not have the one pair of shoes that they do everything in, but they have, the right shoes for running or the right shoes for that sport. So you're leaving us with a lot to think about. Thank you so much for being with us. This is Ann Jordan with Connecting Community. And thank you, Dr. Nayeli, for opening our minds and allowing us to see more about what is going on in our community. So thank you very much.
This is KYJJ 94.1 FM, Woodman, Oregon, and K2A5 FM, HD2 104.9 FM, Kennewick, Washington, La Gran X 94.1 y 104.9 FM, Latin Mix, una estación más de Alcon Media, LLC.